Arc 2. Chapter 12. Playing Tag. The young boy was thrown roughly against the sagging trident ruin. Disturbed mud billowed around him, further dimming the water, blued by depth. His body was adolescent and wiry, a shock of black hair floating in a nimbus around his head. Blue eyes darted about warily under thick brows.
"Nice try, Winter,"
called the voice of his adversary, taunting.
"But you haven't the guts to stand up to me."
"More like the stomach, Balanoptera,"
said Winter, suddenly pushing off towards him. He held fistfuls of muck from the ruin, which trailed enveloping clouds, spiraling outward as he spun into a tackle against Balanoptera. There was a grunt, a brief scuffle, and Winter was propelled backwards out of the cloud.
"Ugh, you barnacle,"
swore Balanoptera, spinning himself to slough the mud off and clear the water.
"I've had it with your dirty tricks."
No sooner had he dispersed the cloud than Winter was on top of him again, having circled above. He wrapped his legs around him and started to wrestle. Balanoptera twisted first one way, then another. He tried to bash him against the seafloor, but it did not shake him. Finally he slammed him hard up against some shapeless outer part of the ruin, and feeling him loose and flung him roughly into the collapsed gateway. Winter lay there, unmoving. Balanoptera shook himself, recovering. He glared at Winter's unmoving form.
"Serves you right, you uppity krill."
Winter's hand moved slightly. Balanoptera swam closer, warily.
"What's wrong, sea cucumber? Did I hit you too hard? You have to expect that if you play with the big boys."
Winter raised his head a little, then it sagged back.
"Not dead, I see,"
sneered Balanoptera.
"Pity. I finally have my vengeance for my sister."
He minced around.
"It was an accident, Daddy. I was going easy on him in the race and he got caught in a collapsing ruin. So sad."
A sneer crossed his face.
"Maybe I should anyway."
Winter curled up into a fetal position, his head covering his hand. Balanoptera swam closer, threateningly.
"Afraid, are you? You should be."
Balanoptera gloated.
"You don't mess with the sons of Atlantica. A true son, that is. You are just a foster son, and you shouldn't forget it. Your surface politics won't protect you here."
A weak sound came from Winter. Balanoptera drew closer again.
"Crying? You're crying,"
he said, unbelieving.
"Can't run with the big boys in the race? No pearl to bring home to show your foster father you're as good as his true sons?"
Balanoptera held out a small shining object.
"The prize is mine. You have some arrogance running the race at all."
He aimed a kick at Winter, who sobbed harder.
"You just lie here, surface crybaby,"
taunted Balanoptera.
"Even better, don't bother finishing the race. I won't say you slunk off. Go back to your dry barren land. Break your treaty. See if we care. Atlantica and his sons will."
In a sudden movement Winter sprung out of his crouch and snatched the pearl from Balanoptera. He spun in mid-water and pushed off of Balanoptera himself into the depths of the ruin. With a cry Balanoptera shot after him, but was brought up short by the gate. Mud cascaded down as he slammed up against it.
"I'll spawn red tide,"
screamed Balanoptera, trying to batter pieces of the posts and lintel loose so he could get in.
"You can't get out except by me. I'll crush you. Give that back."
Winter ignored the cries as he swam deeper into the ruin. It had been carved into the compressed mud of the sea ridge, and reinforced and faced with stone. The deeper in he went, the more intact it became. There was only occasional subsidence where the mud had flowed into the passages. These had been cleared just enough to allow Winter passage as he traversed them with familiarity. Near the center was what had been the vault of the edifice. A final length of corridor ran straight up, with two twists for a last-ditch defense to be fought over. It then opened into a small room. The walls of this room were covered in a shimmery glaze, making it resistant to magical investment. It also made it airproof, which Winter had clearly used to his advantage. He surfaced in the room and pulled himself up on a ledge until he was entirely free of the water. He paused, listening, then smiled. He held up the faintly shimmering pearl and turned to some shell bowls. Sorting through the contents, he first touched the rock, which added its own light to the gloom. He pulled an hourglass from another one and set it up, cascading. Carefully, from under a small pile of rocks, he extracted a finely crafted wooden chest. He touched the surface in several places and it popped open. He pulled out, and held for a while, a small portrait. It was an elfin woman with fiery red hair, wearing a Romitu officer's uniform. He placed it gently back and brought out a small, nondescript metal box. Into one compartment he placed the pearl, and into the other he placed the small clear crystal from the box. He clicked the two compartments shut, and there was a discreet vibration. He took the crystal out and sequestered it in his short trousers. The pearl he kept in his hand. With care he replaced all of the contents, and sequestered the box back under the carefully arranged rubble. He checked the timer and the sand was 3/4 run through. He pulled something from another shell, and chewed on it a while, resting. When the last of the sand had run out, he placed the shell bowls back from the edge, turned the glowstone off, and slipped into the water. Winter swam directly to another part of the ruin, then peered cautiously into the greater ocean. All seemed quiet. He darted out, and made his way along the ridge, keeping to dark spots and seaweed banks. Eventually the ridge ran out, and all that was left was open seafloor in the direction of Atlantica's palace. He paused for a while, looking to see there was any surface weather that might change the lighting. Seeing nothing he sighed, and brazenly swam into the open water, using his fastest long-distance stroke. He only passed startled fish for a while. But as he drew closer to the palace, he was shadowed by a hammerhead shark. First on one side, then the other. He did not even try to evade, only going for speed. As the third came up, they started to hem him in. Swimming close enough to nudge him, or perturb his strokes. As his speed slowed, a dark shadow loomed above him.
"That's quite enough,"
said Balanoptera. Winter stopped and the two faced off. Balanoptera glared at him malevolently.
"Don't even think of trying another trick. I've had enough of you playing the sea otter today."
Winter remained expressionless.
"Now, are you going to give me the pearl, or are my friends going to tear it from you?"
Winter looked sidelong at the hovering sharks, considering.
"It doesn't matter how smart you think you are,"
said Balanoptera.
"If you walk into that palace with that pearl, I will make life very, very, very hard for you."
The menace dripped from his voice.
"You know I can."
It was fun while it lasted,
said Winter, smiling wryly. He held out the pearl, but pulled back just as Balanoptera reached for it.
"Just remember, you didn't win by your own merit. I did. If it ever comes down to just you and me."
Balanoptera snatched the pearl from him, and swam off without looking back.